tonight.
This is a violation of law.
An impeachment inquiry is officially underway. What it could mean for the future of Donald Trump's presidency.
Well, it turned out to be a nothing call.
And the country finally gets a look at what the president said in the now infamous phone call with his Ukrainian counterpart. Plus,
It's heartbreaking.
an Israeli soldier killed by Hamas. Inside his family's fight to bring home his remains. All this and more tonight on Faith Nation.
The White House releases a highly anticipated phone transcript as Democrats proceed with an impeachment inquiry. Welcome to Faith Nation. I'm John Jessup.
And I'm Jenna Browder. The push to impeach President Trump ramping up in Congress. House committees tonight moving forward with their investigations. We are covering all angles of the story tonight. Abigail Robertson is on Capitol Hill, but Ben Kennedy joins us from the White House.
President Trump authorized today's release of the unredacted phone call between him and Ukrainian President Zelensky. It shows Mr. Trump encouraged the leader of Ukraine to work with Attorney General William Barr and the president's personal attorney, Rudy Giuliani, to investigate former Vice President and current 2020 presidential candidate Joe Biden. Ben, what else are we learning from the transcript?
Well, John, Jenna, in the call, President Trump raised allegations that the former Vice President Joe Biden sought to interfere with the Ukrainian prosecutor's investigation on his son, Hunter. He said there's a lot of talk about Biden's son, that Biden stopped the prosecution, and a lot of people want to find out about that. So whatever you can do with the Attorney General would be great. Biden went around bragging that he stopped the prosecution, so if you can look into it, it sounds horrible to me. The conversation between the two leaders is one piece of a whistleblower's complaint, which followed this phone call. The complaint is central to the formal impeachment inquiry launched Tuesday by House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. But today, Trump said this was all built up to be about, quote, the call from hell, but he said it was really a nothing call.
There's no pressure whatsoever. And if you take a look at the Democrats, they went down to see the president of Ukraine. And they asked him for all sorts of things and don't go with the Republicans and stay with us, and like it's a political war. They shouldn't have done that. That should be an impeachable event, I guess, based on what you're saying.
Now, Senator Mitt Romney called the transcript deeply troubling. On the other hand, other GOP lawmakers say it's merely the latest effort by the Democrats to get Trump out of office. John, Jenna?
Yeah, Ben, President Trump met with Ukraine's president earlier today. What came out of that meeting?
Well, Jenna, the two world leaders joked about the recent events in the beginning. Trump said that President Zelensky has made him more famous, while Ukraine's president added that it's better to be on TV than by phone. But when asked about that call, President Zelensky said nobody pushed me when referring to investigating Biden.
I want him to do whatever he can. This was not his fault. He wasn't there. He's just been here recently. But whatever he can do in terms of corruption, because the corruption's massive. Now, when Biden's son walks away with millions of dollars from Ukraine and he knows nothing, and they're paying him millions of dollars, that's corruption.
When asked about the indictment inquiry and House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, President Trump said that she's been taken over by the radical left, adding that she's no longer the Speaker of the House. At last check, yeah, she still holds that position. John, Jenna?
Ben Kennedy at the White House. Ben, stick around. We'll come back to you in a moment. For now, we turn to Capitol Hill.
Yeah, lawmakers are speaking out forcefully on this impeachment inquiry. Abigail, we want to bring you in here. What are these lawmakers saying tonight?
Well, not surprisingly, right now things are very much divided on party lines, with Democrats saying with the release of this transcript, it validates their impeachment inquiry, while Republicans are countering that, saying that Democrats decided to go ahead with the impeachment inquiry before they saw the transcript, before they saw the whistleblower complaint. And I spoke with many Republicans like Congresswoman Vicky Hartzler, who argues that now that this transcript is released, it's proof that there was no quid pro quo between President Trump and the Ukrainian president, and she argues that the Democrats' impeachment claims are baseless. Take a look.
And this is clearly just a partisan effort on their behalf. to undo the results from the 2016 election. They didn't like that. They tried the Mueller report investigation, which wasted years of investigation and over $25 million of taxpayer money. And now that didn't succeed, so they're trying to bring up these baseless charges this time and continue down the road of impeachment.
Well, Democrats are countering that argument that there was no quid pro quo by saying that this phone call that President Trump talked to the Ukrainian president like a mob boss, with Congressman Adam Schiff calling it a classic mafia-like shakedown and saying that in the phone call it was very clear what President Trump wanted from the president of Ukraine in order to get that military funding.
Abigail, some say an argument could be made to investigate Vice President Biden and his involvement in Ukraine. What are you hearing about that?
Well, there are a lot of Republican congressmen and women like Vicky Hartzler who are arguing that they want to see that investigating. It's an incident with Vice President Joe Biden, his son, and a fired prosecutor in Ukraine. They say that that is where the real quid pro quo is. They want to know more about that. But Democrats I've spoken to say that that is not the issue here. I spoke with Congressman Chris Pappas, who said that that is not the problem, and they do not think that needs to be investigated. Take a look.
Well, it's not our job to demand a foreign power investigate a political opponent here in the United States. That's inappropriate behavior from the President of the United States. So that is not the issue here. The issue here is the behavior of the President and our ability as a Congress to be a check and balance. And I think we have an important constitutional role to play in that regard.
Now, so far, Biden on the campaign trail has condemned the president's actions, but has not joined the calls for impeachment.
Abigail, so where do things go from here?
Well, tomorrow, the Director of National Intelligence will testify before the House Intelligence Committee. That is a highly anticipated hearing. It will probably be very fiery. But another interesting thing to note is that for the next 2 weeks, Congress is on recess, so they will be returning to their districts. They will be hearing from their constituents how they feel on this issue of impeachment. So it'll be interesting to see when they return in 2 weeks if there's been any changes in some of these lawmakers' opinions on the issue.
All right, Abby, thank you.
And we want to bring in our chief political analyst, David Brody. Now, David, you know, Democrats and Republicans seem very divided on this. Democrats seem to think this is a huge deal. Republicans, on the other hand, say another big nothing burger.
Yeah, so Democrats are going to say that. You know, everything's a smoking gun to them, and for Republicans, nothing's a smoking gun. But look, let's just go with the facts here. The facts are this. In that phone call, there was no quid pro quo. Just simple as that. There just wasn't. In other words, there was not an ask by Donald Trump to say, do this about Biden or else I'm holding back aid. That wasn't in the call. So that big smoking gun was never there. Whistleblower complaint, we'll find out and kind of sift through all of that. So that's a big, important part of this. So really, what does it come to? It comes to this. Democrats want to impeach Donald Trump over his behavior, that it's not normal for what this president's doing. It is unethical in their view. He is undermining the U.S. Constitution, and that is their main focus. Has there been a crime committed? At this point, we, the American people, look at the transcript and see nothing. There is no crime there right now. Lawyers may disagree to a degree. We'll wait and see on that.
As David just mentioned, Ben, we're going to wait and see with where this leads. But right now, this is historic. Trump is now the fourth president to face an impeachment inquiry. Clearly, this is not something he wanted.
Yeah, John, you're right. It is rarely used. President Trump joins a very small group. The other three presidents were Andrew Johnson, Bill Clinton, and Richard Nixon. Johnson and Clinton were later acquitted by the Senate, and Nixon resigned. So no president has ever been removed from office as a direct result of impeachment and conviction by Congress. As for the impact it'll have in November 2020, it is not clear as lawmakers prepare that Abby was talking about to take the next step in this process.
Abby, how does the release of this whistleblower complaint change things?
Well, this is going to shed light on a lot of lingering questions that a lot of people are asking. Was the complaint about the phone call, or did something else happen that caused this whistleblower to come forward? So we're going to see that, and I think as more details come out, we'll start to see where a lot of these lawmakers who are currently holding their cards a little closer to their chest haven't really come out and said where they stand on everything. We'll start to see some of them come forward.
David, even though we've witnessed a lot of high drama in the last 24 hours, to use a phrase from you, at the end of the day, not much really changes in the House's investigation even after Nancy Pelosi's impeachment announcement.
That's right. Really, if you think about it, nothing changed. And what I mean by nothing changed, Gerald Nadler is going to do his thing in the House Judiciary Committee, Schiff is going to do his thing in the House Intelligence Committee. It just goes on and on. So that impeachment inquiry has been unofficially going on. Nancy Pelosi gave it the weight of the American flag backdrop, and the networks broke in, and she said, now we're going to have an impeachment inquiry. Well, you already have been having one. But what is significant is Nancy Pelosi is issuing those words, saying those words. She has obviously been very reluctant, if we talked about, to do anything as it relates to impeachment. So that is the news. But tangibly what it means nothing whatsoever. It still goes down the road. Ukraine now just becomes part of the larger pot that they're investigating.
Do you think this impeachment inquiry will move the needle at all with the American public?
At this point, no. And I keep saying at this point because I have a feeling there is a trickle part of this. We don't know everything about the whistleblower complaint, and even when all of it is released, I think there's going to be still more to come. Now, once again, when I say more to come, I'm not suggesting more smoking guns, but we don't have all of the pieces to the puzzle. Having said that, you have to make it easy to explain to Americans in Peoria, so to speak. And right now, when you start mentioning Ukraine and millions of dollars and Hunter Biden, and wait, who is he? He's the nephew of a who, of the son of... It gets a little bit too complicated. You got to dumb it down, and I don't mean that as an insult, but, you know, we use that term, dumb it down for the American people and for us, all of us, and that's very important. And this is a hard story to dumb down.
Yeah, you've got to be able to wrap your mind around it.
For sure.
Abby, more fireworks, as you mentioned earlier, are expected tomorrow when the acting director of national intelligence testifies up on the Hill.
Yes, this is definitely a hearing I would recommend tuning into. The Washington Post reported this afternoon that Joseph McGuire, the acting director, threatened to resign if he was not allowed to testify before Congress. So it'll be very interesting to see what he has to say tomorrow.
Well, to our entire panel, David, Abigail, and Ben, thank you so much for being with us today. Coming up, the fight to bring the remains of their son home. Why one family traveled from Israel to the United States to ask for help.
It's the new Superbook Bible app. It's packed with games, activities, and Superbook episodes that you can watch for free. Oh, no! There's trivia, a fun daily devotional, and answers to your Bible questions. Plus, an easy-to-understand Bible the whole family will enjoy. You can even create your own Superbook character. Ta-da! It's the new Superbook Bible app. Free downloads on iTunes, Google Play, and Amazon.
Young people, millennials, are flocking to church.
It's not an exaggeration to say that we love to meet them and that we love to know their stories.
Come home to the Southern Gospel Station from CBN Radio. You'll enjoy a rich Southern blend of bluegrass, classic gospel, and Southern gospel favorites. CBN Southern Gospel. Available now at cbnradio.com.
Woohoo! Hi, Superbook fans. Here's something else you'll love. Whoa! It's the new Superbook Bible app. It's packed with games, activities, and Superbook episodes that you can watch for free. Oh, no! There's trivia, a fun daily devotional, and answers to your Bible questions. Plus, an easy-to-understand Bible the whole family will enjoy. You can even create your own Superbook character. Ta-da! Whoa!
Millsburg Falls man, come...
Sorry, pardon me. Sorry, excuse me. Ouch!
Are you getting this?
Earn super points to win daily prizes, too. And so much more! Time to get back to my adventures. See you soon! It's the new Superbook Bible app. Free downloads on iTunes, Google Play, and Amazon.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has been tasked with forming a new government. That comes a week after a deadlock election between him and Benny Gantz. Today's decision came after negotiations failed to form a unity government between Netanyahu's Likud party and Gantz's Blue and White party. It will not be easy, though, for Netanyahu to form a government. The Likud party walked away from last week's election with 55 seats in Israel's parliament. That is short of the 61 seats needed to form a majority. Netanyahu now has 6 weeks to try and form a government coalition.
Tonight, a family in Israel hopes that the United States and the United Nations will be able to bring about a small miracle. Their son was killed by Hamas terrorists 5 years ago, and his body never returned.
Yeah, they've traveled to the United States to plead for help, emboldened by the new international resolution. CBN News national security correspondent Eric Phillips has more.
Hadar means glory in Hebrew, and Hadar Golden was indeed his parents' pride and joy. Losing him was difficult enough, but not being able to give him a proper burial is almost too much to bear. It's why they came here to the U.S. with the help of the Israeli embassy to try and make some headway.
It's heartbreaking.
The pain in this Israeli mother's eyes is evident as she talks about her son, Hadar Golden. She says he was always smiling.
Smiling from the inside. His most characteristic thing was to see the good things in everything. In Hebrew, we say you have bad eye, ayn ra, and you have good eye. He had the good eye.
Hadar joined the Israeli army, and in August of 2014, he was in Gaza as part of Operation Protective Edge. Hamas had launched missiles into Israel. His mother says 2 hours into a ceasefire, he was ambushed by Hamas.
Hamas took advantage of knowing Israel soldiers' protocol not to shoot during ceasefire. They ambushed his team, killed 3 of them, and kidnapped Hadar into the underground tunnel where they still keep him, his body, his remains, as a bargaining chip to release sentenced terrorists.
The family has been trying unsuccessfully ever since to retrieve their son's remains and give him a proper burial, a cornerstone of the Jewish faith. The response from officials had always been the same.
These are terrorists, Hamas terrorists. What can you do? We don't have any contact to those terrorists. War is war with all the consequences, but capturing the dead, refusing to let me bury him is the lowest thing to do.
The family has new hope thanks to a newly passed UN Security Council resolution. It says in part that when a ceasefire is initiated and a peace agreement reached, the return of hostages and the deceased must be a top priority.
So for us, this is now the windows of opportunity to bring our son home, since the United States are highly involved in initiating the peace plan in our region. This resolution actually moves the responsibility to the UN state members by saying, when you initiate agreements, it's your responsibility now to factor in the return of Hadar.
The Goldens came to the U.S. to try and build support for their case by meeting with White House officials and the UN Secretary General, who she said was optimistic. His office released a statement saying, in part, the Secretary General had a private meeting with the parents of Hadar Golden. He continues to call on all parties to abide by international humanitarian law and duly inform the families of missing Israelis and Palestinians regarding the status of their loved ones. This mother feels a step closer to closure for her son, who was 23 years old and a month away from his wedding when he was killed.
For us, it's to put a closure. It's to put a closure to the family, and specifically to his twin brother and his fiancée. And we believe that your current administration can fix this wrong. Not just pray for it, not just think about us, but make it happen.
Mrs. Golden says when she spoke with the UN Secretary General, he said Hadar's remains should be returned, quote, immediately and unconditionally. She's hoping that will happen in the very near future. In Washington, Eric Phillips, CBN News.
Thank you, Eric. New warnings tonight from Iran's president speaking before the UN General Assembly. President Hassan Rouhani said the region with high tensions and escalating conflicts is on, quote, the edge of collapse, blaming the United States for failing to solve problems in Afghanistan, Iraq, and Syria. He's also accusing the United States of merciless economic terrorism over sanctions due to the Iranian nuclear program. Rouhani's speech came just hours after Secretary of State Mike Pompeo gave a keynote address at the United Against Nuclear Iran Summit. There he called on other nations to join with the United States.
But countries are indeed awakening to the truth that the more Iran lashes out, the greater our pressure will and should be. And you can count on America to lead. Each nation can. As President Trump said yesterday, as long as Iran's menacing behavior continues, sanctions will not be lifted. They will be tightened.
And during Pompeo's speech, he also announced new U.S. sanctions on China for their transportation of Iranian oil.
Stifling of free speech. Next, why some say college campuses are the worst place for the First Amendment.
Are you suffering from feeling tired or worn out during the day? Can you not turn off your brain at night? You are not alone. Hi, I'm Dr. Michael Bruce, the sleep doctor, and I've partnered with the Christian Broadcasting Network, and we're gonna bring you some unbelievable information that you can use tonight to get a better night's rest.
Wake up to your best life. Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to cbn.com to get your free copy of Protect Your Sleep today.
If you want to be an attorney with a passion for serving people and for excellence, Regent University needs to be high on your list.
Regent's award-winning law school doesn't just create lawyers. We create leaders, judges, prosecutors and defense lawyers, civil litigators, and leaders in government.
My focus has been trying to really make sure we have the future leaders we need for the bench and the bar and for society generally.
You'll learn from highly credentialed leaders who are current and former judges, distinguished scholars, and ACLJ counsel.
I'm so glad I chose Regent. The relationships here have been amazing. The faculty have been amazing. Not everybody's called to the same thing when they leave law school, but they're called by a God who has a purpose for their lives, and He is going to use that education to make a difference in the world.
Regent will prepare you to be a purpose-driven, practice-ready lawyer. To start your rewarding law career, complete the online application, submit your transcripts, and take the law school admissions test by July. Apply today.
If you want to be an attorney with a passion for serving people and for excellence, Regent University needs to be high on your list.
Regent's award-winning law school doesn't just create lawyers. We create leaders, judges, prosecutors and defense lawyers, civil litigators, and leaders in government. Ready to become a purpose-driven, practice-ready lawyer? To start your rewarding career, complete the online application, submit your transcripts, and take the law school admissions test by July.
Welcome back. Earlier this year, President Trump signed an executive order to protect free speech at college campuses.
He said he was taking the, quote, historic action to defend American students and values under siege by liberal ideologies. Paul Strand introduces us to students who say they've seen it firsthand.
America's the land of liberty, but to have a free people, you need free speech. And that's threatened in some places these days. It seems mostly on college campuses, which is ironic when you think that more than any place else, universities would treasure the robust exchange of ideas and unfettered free speech.
A recent poll found, though, that 68% of students believe a political and social climate on their campus keeps them from speaking freely.
They fear that their classmates might find their opinions offensive, so they just don't talk altogether.
Nicole Neely's group Speech First fights for free speech on campuses. She mentions another poll showing conservative students tend to censor themselves.
73% of strong Republicans say that they fear expressing opinions in class because they're worried that their grade might suffer.
Neely points out that's because it's often the professors who take offense. This article highlighted a professor writing, "I nearly had to cancel class because of how shaken I am about seeing a Build a Wall banner on our campus." He advocated curbing what he sees as dangerous free speech, saying, "This poses a threat to the mental well-being of many of our students, staff, and faculty, that it violates their sense of safety."
I actually was just on a panel with a professor from University of Maryland this week, and he said that he felt that students in class wearing something like a Make America Great hat would make him feel offended.
Neely says that can lead to unfair treatment and gave us an example of a Michigan student she knows.
His professor saw him wearing a Trump button and then refused to write him a letter of recommendation for med school.
In one case, a Wisconsin student was busted for passing out Valentines. Apparently, someone on campus was threatened by that and turned her in.
Every year, she hands out handmade Valentines that say Jesus loves you for Valentine's Day. She's religious, and somebody filed a complaint against her for doing so, and the school tried to shut her down. They said, you're not allowed to do this.
Neely points out it's often students themselves willing to curb the First Amendment because they think some speech can actually hurt them.
They want to be free from emotional harm, which is really, it's troubling in a way, because you think, okay, well, this might be 4 years of your life, but you go out into the real world and you're not going to be protected from emotional harm.
Paul Strand, CBN News, Arlington, Virginia.
Still ahead, the miraculous rescue story of an injured hiker in Washington state.
Prophecy thousands of years old.
We were called to be a light to the world.
Being fulfilled today. Discover how. Get to life. Call 1-800-700-7000.
We consider it our duty to reach out and help others around the world.
For a gift of $10 or more, you can own the acclaimed CBN documentary To Life. Just call 1-800-700-7000 or log on to CBN.com.
To treat a human, no matter what he is, which religious he has, which color he is, this is what I'm doing.
See how the people of Israel are fulfilling prophecy.
History is being written, and I want to be a part of it.
By sharing their knowledge.
In Africa, in Asia, in South America, in East Europe.
And their love.
This is how we work. This is us.
Get to life. Call 1-800-700-7000 or log on to CBN.com.
Get Protect Your Sleep and discover how to improve the quality of your life. A free DVD or booklet from the Christian Broadcasting Network.
If you're not a great sleeper, you can do things to make yourself a great sleeper. If you're already a pretty good sleeper, you can enhance your sleep and be even better.
5 leading experts help remove the obstacles between you and restorative sleep.
When you don't get a restful night's sleep, you wake up with an accumulation of stress.
Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to CBN.com to get your free DVD or booklet today.
Everything you do better with a good night's sleep.
You'll discover how food affects your sleep, how to put insomnia to rest, explore effective remedies for sleep apnea, and much more in Protect Your Sleep. Wake up to your best life and get Protect Your Sleep today. Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to CBN.com to get your free DVD or booklet.
Finally tonight, what would you do if you were out on a hike, you slipped, you broke your leg, and then fell into a ravine? It might sound like a scene out of a movie, but it was a terrifying real-life situation for one Washington woman.
Yeah, after her fall, Barbara Dadswell had been stranded in the woods for 2 whole days, but she hadn't given up hope.
I was afraid, but I didn't want that to be the focus of what I was doing there. I just had to think about, you want to just die up here, or you're going to have to do something. I hear a person's voice, and I'm like, are you a person? You're a person. Thank God.
And that person, a runner, who just happened to hear the injured woman's dog bark. The passing runner found Barbara and ran back to the closest ranger station for help. A search and rescue team quickly brought her to safety. And after the horrible ordeal, Barbara had one message for people who hear her story. That message, be thankful for everything you have.
That is a great message and really wonderful for her to get saved.
Yeah, and what a hero.
Yeah. Well, that's it for tonight's Faith Nation.
Have a great night.